Hey everybody, you're here with me, Jen the Taxidermy Witch, and we're sitting down, we're talking about some Yule lore, okay? So grab a cup of tea and sit by the fire, light a candle. It's all just really, really fun. I have always loved this time of year in general. Christmas, growing up as a kid, of course. And this will be the first year I'm really trying to understand where Yule came from originally, the origins. And so that's what I'm reading you here today. I didn't find a ton in my books, but I listened to a lot of YouTube videos this morning. So hopefully these things are accredited, but they came from what I would call good sources, so hopefully they are. But a lot of them are matching up. They're saying the same things video for video. That to me means that it's, you know, if a lot of sources are saying the same thing, there's more truth to it, yeah? Okay, so let's talk about Yule. The main chunk of what I found was that it has Germanic origins. Now, I'm not just saying that it's German, but Germanic, and I believe that that was a religion. So, Christmas is very pagan in nature. Everything about it is. I'm going to kind of list some things that mirror, you know, Christmas versus Yule. But just break down the word Christmas. It's Christ and then Mass. And the word Mass is in the Catholic religion, they have a ceremony called a Mass, and then you go there, and it's, you know, usually on a Saturday night, and on holidays they go to midnight, so you go to like midnight Mass for, you know, the Catholic religion. They go to Mass at midnight on the 24th until it turns to be the 25th, you know, Jesus' birthday. I'm going to fix my blinds. Hopefully this will do it. There we go. Okay. Lighting issues. That's way better. Okay. So, Yule, okay, so yeah, Christ Mass. But the holiday itself, where everything came from, not Christmas, but the holiday, the celebration on this time of year, is far older than Christ. Or the celebration of Christmas. Yule, or Yuletide, ancient back to German roots. In the Nordics, Yule is still the name of the holiday. I took so many notes. The festival, Yule, is as old as Germanic people themselves. The festival, Yule, was a distraction of the misery of the winter that they were going through at the time. Like, it was so cold and harsh. And Yule is at the darkest point of the year. So basically, I'm trying to read my own handwriting. It's not the easiest. Basically, they would gather in a temple around a warm hearth and toast to the gods while drinking mead, the holy ale. And mead is a wine made out of honey, a spirit made out of honey. I make it. I showed you how to make it on my channel, with somewhere within the first 100 videos or so. So way back in the beginning. But what I made was called metheglin, and that's when you add herbs to your mead, and then it has a medicinal purpose as well as the alcohol. Okay, so anyhow, so they would drink mead, the holy ale. Yule centered around a feast and lords of drinking. They were beckoning to the land spirits and invoking the gods. Ways of evoking the gods were animal sacrifice. That would be any kind of common livestock or sacred horses. Blood was okay, it's going to get pretty gruesome, this bit right here, you guys. Blood was gathered onto sacrificial twigs, and then sprinkled on the walls of the temple, on the idols of the gods, and on all the men attending. And then the meat was consumed to complete the sacrifice. The Yule boar, Sonagoda, the boar-type animal from the Yule traditions. And this is where we get our Christmas ham tradition from, is the Sonagoda, the Yule boar. Basically, and here's where we get our New Year's resolutions as well. During this time of year, you would pledge your vows for the next year at midwinter. Okay. After the boar was sacrificed, the flesh was eaten to implore a favorable coming year. This practice, Frey, the god Frey, was replaced in Christianity with Saint Stephen. And to this day, Christmas ham remains an important part of both Catholic and a Yule menu. So do you see how mirrored that is, how close that is? It's just crazy. It makes so much sense to me. Okay, winter was very dangerous. Like, it was just so cold. And the shorter the days were, like, the less daylight you had, the thinner the barriers between living and the dead were. And hell merged, and the spirits abundant on February 6th. This is the day where you would often see, this was the day where you would see the black huntsman on the horse riding through the sky. This has been seen by real humans, all, on accounts in St. Petersburg all the way to Stanford. And Odin leads this hunt. So this Odin story we're about to read, as I read it, you're going to be like, huh, that sounds like lots of things. You'll get it as we go along. Oh, wow. So, any of you who like Odin and or work with Odin, or he's such a cool god. So he leads this hunt, aka Odin's hunt, or Odin's army. Odin has many roles in Germanic faiths, but one, and I'm German, about 60% German, and my husband is 75 or 80% German, so we like a lot of German things just because it's a part of our heritage, right? Just like anyone would. So this Germanic tradition is really exciting to me because it's just old heritage roots from where we come from, and I think that's really cool. So I've enjoyed this whole study that I did on this. So February 6th, yeah. Odin had many roles in Germanic faiths, but one, he was the god of the dead. The hunt was a main aspect of Yule tide, okay? Santa. There is actually a St. Nicholas, and the Santa that we see depicted today, he is based upon that man, only in the fact that when you look at those pictures, he's got, a loving, nice, warm-looking face, and then he's also got, like, a white beard and white hair, but he's not heavy-set, or particularly jolly, but he does look kind. And this saint, he was somebody who really lived in life, and he, I'm guessing, was sainted because of what he did, and what he did was he would give gifts to children, he would give gifts to children all year long, not just one day a year, okay? And so, I don't know if I noted down the year. So basically, I guess I should tell it in the right order. He was a real person who was known for giving gifts to the poor, and he lived in Turkey. I'm not saying that has anything to do with the fact that we eat turkey. I'm sure that came from somewhere else, but he did live in Turkey, and that's where this all happened, St. Nicholas. Also, the word jolly, Joli, translated in French equals the word Yule. Weird. Santa, what did I say? The Santa story is complicated because it's two or more religions and a merge, and it's an interplay of Germanic faith and Christianity. Modern Santa is based on St. Nicholas and Odin, and here's why. After St. Nicholas's death, a day was made in his honor of gift-giving to the poor and needy. That date was December 6th, originally, but was moved to Christmas, December 25th, after Protestant Revolution. What the heck? See, you guys, I'm telling you, like, they just flopped a holiday's date and then said this is Jesus' birthday, like, okay. And the reason why the Protestant Revolution, that changed everything, is because they wouldn't allow worship of saints, I believe. I think that's what it was. Then St. Nick was renamed Santa Claus, both as a part of the Protestant suppression for saint worship. So they stopped calling him St. Nick because of the Protestant times that came in. And they said, you can't call him Saint anymore, but we still want to have this holiday. So they start calling him Santa Claus. Alright, that's where that came from. Both as a part of the Protestant suppression for saint worship. The name Santa Claus comes from St. Nick. Similarly, between the man who gave gifts to those less fortunate and children, and to the god of the dead, leaving wraiths across the sky. So the god of the dead, Odin, flying across the sky with an 8-legged horse. 8 reindeer. Reindeer across the sky. Don't even get me started on where the thing on his back, the big bag of presents on his back came from. That came from Krampus, and we'll tie that in a Krampus video, but oh gosh, it's so good. What's next? So, Santa flying in his sleigh looks a lot, and the reindeer looks a lot like Odin and his 8-legged horse. Okay, so envision Santa as a white-bearded old man in a hooded cloak riding across the northern sky, North Pole, in the depths of winter with his, 8-legged horse, rewarding those who are worthy, presents for those who are nice, and there's a nice and naughty list in this as well, because they would reward those who are worthy and punish those who are not. That sounds like a nice and naughty list to me. In folk faith, Odin was also known as the Yule One, which was Yolnia, and the Master of Yule, which is Yaldahaye. The Wild Hunt was a cruel and dangerous horde, but Old Fader, or Lord of the Festival, also bestowed boons for those who worshipped and sacrificed like Santa invisible in the sky, abound the world and height. The Old Fader passed through the 9 worlds on his 8-legged horse, 8 reindeer. I can't figure out the 9 worlds where that falls in yet. If you guys know, let me know. Called Slapish. So Odin's horse is called Slapish. I believe that's how you pronounce it. A winter gift bringer was already established and provided a basis for the tradition, which a Christian image was newly painted. the house spirit. So now we're going to talk about other things besides Santa Claus for a little bit. Other parts of Yule, or these kinds of Germanic or Slavic or, European folklore that tie into Christmas. And one is the house spirit. Another Yule figure, most prominent in Norse, is the Nissa. Have you guys ever heard of the Nissa? I'm excited to talk about it. That cuppa is so good. Woo, cuppa. The Nissa. Norway and Denmark. Punten in Swedish. There's no English translation. This tradition died out in the Anglo-Saxon Yule. Nissa might be translated as a Nordic version of the Christmas elves. Not exactly correct though. Christmas elves inverted in the U.S. Christmas elves were invented in the U.S. in the 19th century, the 1800s. Drawings are similar to Norse house spirits. Think elves in the... So here it made me think of the elves in the Shoemaker fairy tale, where it's like the elves are so helpful. But in that real fairy tale, we'll have to read it one of these days. So yeah, there's comparisons can be made to also from these house elves and the house spirits to the Celtic Fae, as well as the pagan Fae folk. Nissa, though, is a direct continuation of the Old Norse practice before Christianity. Nissa reside in lofts, like lofts of houses, Lofts, coming out only in Yule tide, so the eve of Yule, I believe, or maybe it's the 12 days of Yule, when they are appeased with offerings of porridge. If you don't give them the porridge, they'll grow angry and punish the house owners with devious behaviors, etc. You know how the Fae are. These are mirrored just like the Fae. This offering is a form of sacrifice, also called bloat. In early days of Nissa worship, they were, like all land spirits, connected to the dead. From this, they were part of the wider Germanic practice of ancestor worship. This is why Nissa lived in these monolith type rock mounds. Nissa related to Odin because of the Yule connection and spirits of the dead. Even in Germanic, through Nissa went integral into Christmas. Where are we at time-wise? Okay, we're doing okay. I think I'll get through it. Basically, they lived in these rocks. They were more connected to Odin. Christmas depictions in the early 1800s. They became bearers of gifts, not slowly started to look more like Santa. So these Nissa kind of morphed into looking more like Santa. Oh no. Oh, now we're going to talk about the Yule goat, which is really interesting. The Yule goat was a unique northern tradition during the 19th century. The Yule goat was the bringer of gifts before being replaced with the Nissa. Then Father Christmas came. So first it went the Yule goat, then Nissa, then Father Christmas. Predating all of this was men dressing up as the Yule goat and walking through villages in groups while singing and performing. A ritual hard to say origins of the origins are hard to say. One idea, though, is Thor, who has a horse-drawn chariot. Or, which is totally like Santa, right? Like Santa in a sleigh. Or Indo-Europeans represents harvest and good traditions. Today it's a common Nordic ornament. Important in Sweden were a statue. So in Sweden they build a statue of this since 1966, this giant horse, and they build it out of, I saw pictures of it, they build it out of hay, and it's basically, since 1966, it's been burned down and vandalized more years than it's actually been up and not vandalized. So every year this happens, pretty much, that it's burnt down. And then in Britain, the Yule log, aka the Yule clog, which I think is hilarious that that's its like slang word. It's burnt during the celebration. I'm gonna do a whole Yule log video, but how did we get this connected to Santa? Oh, well, basically the Yule log leads us to this like holiday tree focus that they all really have, where the roots are depictions of like this part of life, and let's see, you sing and dance around this tree. Neo-pagans are often quick to say the Christmas tree came from them, but they might not quite be true. First depictions are, and this is just what one man is saying in his video. It's not what I'm saying. This is just what my research is saying. First depictions of the tree come from Rhineland, an area in Germany, of the Christmas tree, and that was in the early 18th century, so the 1700s. And from that it spread all throughout Germany, stayed there for a while, and then all throughout the world. And then there's this thing that I was talking about called the well tree, or the wold ash. And it has 9 worlds in this one tree. The base is the well of blood and the roots, and then the waters are of time and destiny. It's a metaphysical object, not an actual tree, but all trees are viewed as sacred, and as just like if you worship Bast or Bastet, or if you work with her, you know that every cat you're supposed to treat as though it's Bastet, because if you look into a cat's eyes, you supposedly can get Bastet to channel right back to you. So I'm saying that just like that is sacred, these trees, they worship them. They believe that there's just these 9 levels in there, and so that's something that comes around and is also tied into the Christmas tree a little bit. And it was common to see a tree in the middle of a courtyard at Christmas time with dancing, etc. Trees act as the same sacred symbol. The well of the woods symbolize the past. Trunk and branches are fate. Waters flowing through. It gets pretty complicated, but basically there's this whole like kind of view on it, and the view is this. To put it simply, fate is predefined, but our actions can feed back into the past by the ability to influence fate cycle. But it's an interesting story, so if you guys want to know the video, let me know, that I got a lot of these informations from. Today Christmas is a Christian holiday, Christ Mass. And I think that it would be nice if there was a non-religious word for it. And why not just call it Yule? And because you're celebrating a lot of the same traditions, you know, you're just calling it something else, from what I'm, gathering. And so really, we should be celebrating Christmas on December 6th. And, because that's when it used to be celebrated. I don't know, traditionally. So, lore. Children would lay out their empty shoes, okay? And if the shoes had gifts in them when they woke up, they had gifts, yay! If they had coal in them when they woke up, they had to deal with the Krampus. And And December 5th, which was Christmas Eve at that time, or it was called Krampus Eve. Some people in Germany, they called it Krampus Eve. And, you know, if you got coal, you had to deal with the Krampus. That lore and that legend gets so dark and deep. It goes into, oh, that sack that Santa Claus has got on his back. Well, Krampus carried a sack, but it was full of children. And that gets dark and deep, and he used to eat their bones and like all this super lore crazy stuff. So hopefully I'll get the time to do a Krampus video this year. If not, definitely next year. Guys, thanks for joining me by my fire. If you guys want to know any Yule, not recipes, but I will be doing a DIY Yule log, but I do have some Yule log stuff in here. I just want to read this stuff, watch a couple DIYs, and then make my own version, you know. I want to get the real, and I will be reading you, there's actually a bunch of lore just on the Yule log in this book, as well as this book. These were the two I had that talked about it. So, definitely a solid video on Yule log, lore, and DIY. You basically need a log, 3 candles, a drill, and some foliage from outside. So if you had all those things, you could do it for free, you know. Mine will be free because I have all those things. So you don't need too much. The drill helps you get the holes in the log for the candles to stick in. So make sure to come back with me, Jen the Taxidermy Witch, while we do like tons of beautiful things this gorgeous winter. It is such a witch's time of year, the winter, in my opinion. I love you guys. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.